Something is shifting in America. Most people can feel it. Almost nobody can name it. And that's what makes it so hard to talk about. It's not one big thing. It's not a law, a company, or a scandal. It's quieter than any of those. It's happening in the most ordinary moments of ordinary days. And because each moment seems so small, most people just adapt and move on, without ever asking why it feels different now. But the feeling doesn't go away. In the past year alone, more than 8,000 retail stores permanently shut their doors. Cashiers are being replaced by touchscreens. Brand new cars come with cameras inside the cabin, pointed at the driver's face. And a television, still in the box, will ask you to create an account before it lets you watch a single thing. Every one of those changes has a reasonable explanation, but when you stop treating them as separate stories and start seeing them as one story, something comes into focus that most people have never been able to say out loud. These changes aren't scattered. They aren't coincidental. They're all moving in the same direction, and once you see that, you really can't unsee it. Part 1. The morning you've already lived. Picture a Tuesday. Nothing special about it. You pull into the parking lot of the grocery store you've been going to for years. Same store, same aisles. You grab what you need and head to the front. Every checkout lane is a self-service kiosk. Every single one. You scan your own items, bag them yourself. Tap your card. The machine beeps. You walk out. 4 minutes. Not one word spoken to another human being. An hour later, you stop at a pharmacy. The person behind the counter answers your question in one sentence, eyes already drifting to the next customer before you've finished saying thank you. That afternoon, you need to take care of something at a local government office. There's a sign on the door. The office has moved everything online. The desk behind it is empty. On their own, none of those moments feel significant. But here's what's worth actually pausing on, and this is the part most people never stop to think about. None of those changes replaced something that was frustrating you. None of them fixed a problem you had. They replaced something you never thought to protect, because it felt too small, too ordinary, too unremarkable, to ever feel like it mattered. A quick back and forth with a cashier who recognized your face, a pharmacist who asked how you were holding up, a clerk at a counter who remembered something you'd mentioned last time. Those weren't big moments. Nobody would put them in a highlight reel of their life, but they were the texture of daily life. The small, invisible thread connecting you to the people around you, people you hadn't planned to meet, hadn't scheduled time with, hadn't even thought about. They were just there, in the same space, briefly part of the same ordinary moment. That thread is disappearing. Not because anyone sat down and decided to get rid of it, but because every system built to shave off a few minutes of your time is also, quietly, as a side effect, removing one more reason for two people to say anything to each other. And the effects of that are showing up somewhere most people didn't expect. Part 2. The number that doesn't make sense at first. Here's a statistic that genuinely seems like a contradiction, until you understand what's underneath it. Americans are more connected right now than at any point in history. More devices, more platforms, more messages sent per day than ever before in human civilization. And yet loneliness has been climbing for years, consistently. It didn't plateau, it didn't slow down. It kept going up. The U.S. Surgeon General issued a formal public health advisory on this, not because loneliness is unpleasant, but because it's measurably, clinically dangerous. The advisory found that the health impact of social isolation is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15 cigarettes. Not from being stranded somewhere remote. From the kind of quiet, low-level disconnection that builds slowly when the small moments of daily human contact gradually stop happening. Sociologists have spent decades studying the spaces where that contact used to occur most naturally. They call them third places. Not home, not work. The spaces in between, the coffee shop, the bookstore, the hardware store, the neighborhood pharmacy. The unremarkable places where people happen to coexist, without planning it, without needing a reason, and where, in doing so, they felt a little less alone. As more of daily life migrates to apps and screens and automated systems, those spaces don't just get quieter, they disappear. The interactions they made possible stop happening entirely, not because someone planned to remove them, but because 1,000 individually reasonable decisions, all pointing the same direction, can produce an outcome nobody consciously chose. A country that looks almost exactly the way it did and feels like something has gone missing from inside it. That's the first layer of what's actually changing in America. The second one is different, and most people have genuinely never thought about it. Part 3. Your devices aren't just tools anymore. Think about the last time you set up a new piece of technology. The moment you switch it on, before you can do anything with it, play anything, open anything, it asks you to sign in. It wants your name, your email address. It wants to connect to your home network. It presents you with a terms and conditions agreement written in a font that would take a magnifying glass to read, running to dozens of pages that almost no one actually reads. You agree. Of course you agree. Because you just want to use the thing. And the moment you do, the device knows where you are. It knows what language you speak. It knows your time zone. Within a few days of regular use, it knows roughly what time you go to sleep, what kind of content you tend to watch, and what your daily schedule looks like. Because your schedule is visible in the pattern of when the screen turns on and off. Now think about your car. Modern vehicles connect to your phone the moment you get inside. They pull in your contacts, your call history, your navigation data. Many newer models include a camera mounted inside the cabin, pointed directly at your face. Built, according to the manufacturers, to detect when you're distracted or drowsy. Your car is watching you, and your watch is tracking your heart rate around the clock. Your kitchen speaker is waiting for your voice. Your fitness app is logging your steps, your sleep, your movement. Your thermostat is quietly mapping your weekly patterns. None of that is suspicious on its own. The navigation app genuinely needs your location to give you directions. That's just how it works. The sleep tracker needs to monitor your body to tell you anything useful. Feature by feature, it all makes sense. But here's what shifts when you stop looking at each device individually. What's changed isn't how much data any single device is collecting. What's changed is what all of that data combined actually represents. Part 4. You're not just a user, you're a portrait. A few years ago, you bought a product. It did what it was supposed to do. When you were done with it, the transaction was over. That's not how it works anymore. Most of the technology in your life today keeps learning about you long after you bought it. Your habits, your health patterns, your daily schedule, where you go, what you watch, what you search for, what you buy, and what you almost bought. Not all at once, and not in any way that feels dramatic. Just consistently, quietly, building over time. And individually, none of those pieces tell you much. The fact that you watched a travel documentary on a Wednesday night is almost meaningless. The fact that you stopped by a sporting goods store on Saturday is almost meaningless. But thousands of those data points, accumulated over months and years, assembled into a continuous record of how you actually live your life. That's not a data point anymore. That's a portrait. A detailed, evolving portrait of exactly who you are and what you do. The average American household now has somewhere between 10 and 15 internet-connected devices. That number has roughly doubled in the past decade. Every single one of them generating behavioral data every single day, building that portrait a little more completely with every hour that passes. This is also why advertising has started feeling unsettling to people who never used to give it a second thought. You look at something online for 3 minutes. You don't buy it. You don't search for reviews. You just look, then close the tab and move on. And within hours, that exact product is appearing on your social media, your streaming app, your inbox. The immediate reaction most people have is, something is watching me. The truth is actually stranger than that. Part 5. It didn't need to watch you in real time. The system didn't need to watch you in real time. It already knew enough about you, gathered across enough different platforms and devices to predict what you were going to want before you'd consciously decided you wanted it. That is the part most people have never really sat with. For most of your adult life, The technology around you operated in separate compartments. Your TV knew what you watched on that TV. Your phone stored your searches. Your shopping account tracked your orders. None of them were sharing notes. That separation is dissolving. Today, you use the same email login across your phone, your laptop, your tablet, and your TV. Your streaming account connects to your internet provider. Your fitness tracker syncs to your smartwatch, which connects to health apps on your phone. Your car pairs with your phone every morning. Your home speaker is linked to the same account as your online shopping cart. These connections are convenient. Most of them are things you opted into willingly, because they genuinely make life easier. Nobody forced them on you. But here's what that means at the system level. What makes these platforms so powerful isn't that any single device is collecting enormous amounts of data. It's that when data from 10, 12, 15 different devices flows into the same connected ecosystem, through shared logins, shared advertising networks, shared operating systems, it creates a picture of a person that no individual device could ever produce on its own. A gym visit on Tuesday morning, a late-night search for a health supplement, a video about recovery watched all the way to the end. A related purchase 3 weeks later. None of those signals says much alone, but together they form a behavioral profile precise enough to predict what you'll want next, sometimes before you've consciously thought about wanting it. This is the engine behind personalization. It's why the internet increasingly feels like it already knows you before you say anything. It's not intuition. It's not surveillance in the way most people imagine it. It's pattern recognition running across a web of connected data sources, learning your rhythms, your preferences, your tendencies over time. And here's the part that actually matters. User data, aggregated and modeled at this scale, is now one of the most valuable commodities in the global economy. The technology feels like it's serving you. In many ways, it genuinely is. But it is also, at the exact same time, building one of the most detailed records of human behavior that has ever existed, which leads directly to the question that's harder to sit with. Does any of this feel familiar to you? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely want to know which part of this hit home. Part 6. When the data starts making real decisions about your life. What happens when that same data moves beyond showing you ads and starts shaping decisions that have actual, meaningful consequences for your life? There's a specific kind of frustration that almost never makes the news. It doesn't fit the shape of a dramatic story. It's not a scandal or a crisis, but millions of Americans know exactly what it feels like. It's the frustration that comes from doing everything right: studying, working, paying your bills on time, making responsible choices at every turn, and still finding yourself standing in front of a wall of automated systems, unable to locate a single human being with the actual authority to help you. Think about how student loan repayment works in practice for millions of people. You log in to check your options. The website tells you to call a phone number. You call. An automated system routes you through a chain of menus. Eventually, it offers to connect you to a representative. You wait. Half an hour later, someone picks up and tells you that your specific question requires a different servicer. They give you a number. You call it. You wait again. The person who answers tells you to go back to the original website and submit your request through the portal. The portal flags a missing form. The form lives on a different website. You track it down. You fill it out. You upload it. 3 weeks pass. A letter arrives in the mail. Your request is under review. Nobody in that chain was hostile. Nobody was trying to make your life harder. Every step functioned exactly the way it was designed to function, and you were still stuck. Part 7. The system isn't broken. That's actually the problem. This pattern isn't unique to student loans. It shows up in health insurance disputes, mortgage applications, utility company conflicts, interactions with government agencies at every level. The systems aren't failing. They're working. They've just been built to handle volume efficiently, not to resolve the specific human, sometimes complicated situation standing in front of them. And those are two very different things. What actually wears people down isn't being told no. A clear, direct answer, even a negative one, is something most people can handle. What's genuinely exhausting is the loop, the process that sends you in circles, back to its own starting point, without ever resolving anything, and without ever producing a single person who is clearly responsible for the outcome. You can see this most clearly in financial services. Over the past decade, the number of physical bank branches in the United States has dropped by tens of thousands. For the vast majority of transactions, that shift has been a real improvement. Checking your balance, moving money, depositing a check, faster and easier than it's ever been. But when those branches closed, something else closed with them that never made the efficiency report. The physical place where you could walk in and talk to someone who both knew your account and had the power to actually do something about it. The branch manager who could look at your situation, make a judgment call and help you. That person in most communities is simply gone now. What's left in their place is a system that works beautifully for standard transactions and has almost no mechanism for handling anything that doesn't fit the standard workflow. The result isn't cruelty. It isn't malice. The result is that resolving a problem in your own financial life now depends less on having a legitimate issue and more on knowing which exact form to submit, through which exact portal, in which exact order. That's a meaningful shift. And it happened so gradually that most people didn't notice it until they needed help and discovered the door was no longer there. Part 8. The trade that wasn't on the receipt. Step back from all of that for a second, because underneath the vanishing cashiers, the learning devices, and the automated systems, there's something even more fundamental going on. A trade that most people entered into without ever being clearly told they were making one. Think about what a normal morning looks like for tens of millions of Americans right now. You wake up and your phone tells you how you slept, gave you a score, a breakdown, a recommendation for tonight. You get in your car and it unlocks before you've touched it because it recognized your phone. Your playlist picks up where it left off last night. The navigation system already knows your weekday route and has the fastest option ready before you've typed a single character. You pay for coffee by tapping your watch. You walk into lunch, and the restaurant app already knows who you are and has your rewards applied before you say anything. Every single one of those moments is genuinely better than the alternative used to be. The tap is faster than fishing out a card. The autoroute saves a minute. The app knowing your preferences saves you explaining yourself. Nobody forced any of it. People adopted these tools because they work, and because each one made something slightly easier. But here's the question. Almost no one asks when they set these things up. What did it actually cost? Not money. Most of these features come free, bundled in, or standard. The cost isn't on the receipt. The navigation app needs to know exactly where you are, at all times, to function. That's the trade. The sleep tracker needs uninterrupted access to your body throughout the night. That's the trade. The car needs to sync with your phone and build a record of your driving patterns. That's the trade. The rewards app needs your full purchase history, your visit frequency, your spending habits. That's the trade. None of those trades is unfair. Each one gives you something real in return. But what's happened slowly over the past 10 years is that these trades have become so woven into everyday life, so automatic, so expected, so built into the experience of using the products, that most people no longer experience them as decisions at all. They're just how things work now. Part 9. The engine nobody tells you about. There's a concept researchers use called the attention economy. The basic logic is straightforward. Digital platforms, the ones you use for free every day, make their money by selling advertising. And the value of that advertising depends entirely on how precisely the platform can predict what you want to see, what you'll click on, what you're likely to buy. The more accurate the prediction, the more the ad is worth. Which means every major platform in the digital economy has a direct financial incentive to understand you as deeply as possible. Not because anyone is out to get you, but because understanding you better is what makes the business work. That's the logic driving the personalization that most people just experience as oddly convenient. The coupon that showed up right when you needed it. The recommendation that felt a little too accurate. The feeling that your phone somehow anticipates what you're looking for before you've figured it out yourself. It's not a side effect of how the system works. It's the reason the system works the way it does. And the reason most people never think about this isn't a lack of curiosity or intelligence. It's that the whole arrangement was never designed to be visible. Every trade you make, every piece of behavioral data that flows from your devices into these platforms has been embedded so naturally into the experience of using everyday products that it no longer registers as a choice. It just feels like Tuesday morning. But here's what that invisibility actually means. You cannot evaluate a trade you don't know you're making. You can't decide how much you're comfortable giving away if you're never clearly shown what you're giving. And that's not an accident. The seamlessness is the design. If this is landing for you, if you felt this without having words for it, a like actually helps more people find this video. Part 10. What all of it adds up to. Step back now. Look at everything at once. Every individual change we've talked about is defensible. The self-checkout saves time. The smart TV needs an account to stream content. The connected car needs your phone data to work properly. The automated customer service system is cheaper to run and handles more volume. The platform collects your data to make the experience more relevant to you. None of those explanations are wrong. None of those motivations are sinister. None of this was designed as a coordinated effort to make life feel worse. And yet, the casual conversations between strangers in the same checkout line, mostly gone. The familiarity of being a known customer at your bank branch or local pharmacy, fading. The ability to find a real person with the authority and the context to actually sort out your situation harder to access than it was 10 years ago. And the understanding of what you've actually agreed to, what's being built from your behavior, and how it's being used, almost entirely abstract for most people. What's changing isn't any one piece of this. What's changing is the texture of daily life, the feel of it, the experience of moving through an ordinary day in America. And the reason so many people carry that hard-to-name sense that something is different, that everyday life doesn't quite feel the way it used to, isn't because they've all landed on the same opinion about technology. It's because they're all living through the same accumulation of small, quiet shifts. One kiosk where a person used to be. One account required before the device works. One process that loops back to where it started. One interaction that was faster than before, and slightly less human than before, and that you barely noticed at the time. Part 11. Why the slow ones are the ones that actually change everything. Historians who've spent careers studying how societies transform over time keep coming back to the same observation. And most people find it counterintuitive. The biggest changes in how people live aren't the dramatic ones, not the wars, not the crashes, not the breakthroughs that end up in textbooks and documentaries. Those events feel enormous in the moment, and they are. But they don't reshape the actual texture of daily life the way the slow changes do. The deepest shifts happen in the background, in the design of the spaces people move through every day, in the structure of ordinary routines, in the quiet, undramatic restructuring of how people spend the hours of their lives that nobody ever films or writes about. The commute, the errand run, the lunchtime interaction, the brief exchange at a counter. Those changes don't generate headlines because no single moment is dramatic enough, but they accumulate into something that rewrites gradually and completely what feels normal, what people expect, what they know to ask for, what they don't think to question anymore. What people experience becomes what they expect. What they expect becomes what they understand everyday life to be. And that baseline, once it shifts, is almost impossible to consciously notice, because you're already inside it. That is exactly what's happening right now. Not a crisis, not a scandal, a baseline shift. Quiet, cumulative, and moving in one direction. Part 12. The question that actually matters. America isn't becoming unrecognizable because of any one thing. Not AI, not data, not the touchscreen at the grocery store. It's that all of it is converging, at the same time, in the same direction. And everyone living inside that convergence, which is everyone, is being asked to adapt continuously, faster than most people have had a chance to pause and decide what they actually want. The question isn't whether any of this can be reversed. That's probably not how it works. The question is whether you're making deliberate choices about how much of it you want, or whether you're waking up one day and discovering that the environment around you reorganized itself while you were busy adjusting to the last thing. Understanding the pattern doesn't fix anything on its own, but it does something important. It changes your relationship to what's happening around you. It means you're seeing the choices as choices, not just as the way things are. It means you can actually decide, consciously, with some awareness of what's at stake, what you want to hold on to, what you're genuinely okay trading away, what questions you want to start asking out loud. Part 13. What comes next? The people who move through this era with the most clarity won't be the ones who reject technology and walk away from all of it. And they won't be the ones who accept every change without looking at it twice. They'll be the ones who can see the small changes clearly, who can track where they're pointing, who make real, deliberate decisions about what they're willing to give up and what matters enough to protect. That doesn't require alarm. It doesn't require nostalgia for something that was never as simple as memory makes it seem. It just requires being honest about what's actually happening. None of what America is going through right now was coordinated. It wasn't designed in a single room by a single group of people with a unified plan. It emerged from millions of individual decisions by companies, governments, designers, engineers, and ordinary consumers. Almost all of them, most of the time, just trying to make something slightly faster, slightly cheaper, slightly more convenient. The outcome wasn't designed, it accumulated. And that's actually what makes this moment important. Because it means the next chapter isn't designed either. It's being accumulated right now. In choices being made today, in boardrooms and government offices, and product teams and individual households, about which systems to automate, which interactions are worth preserving, which trade-offs are acceptable, and which ones deserve to be pushed back on. Those aren't questions reserved for policymakers or engineers or executives. They're questions for everyone who lives here. America is still here. What it becomes is still being decided. And understanding what's actually happening, clearly, without panic, without pretending it's simpler than it is the first and most honest step toward having any real say in how that goes. What's the one part of this that felt most familiar to you? Leave it below. I read every comment.